for Adobe is coming up next.
Really?
Yes. And the Rookie of the Year from Adobe, and he's one of ours. So we decided that if he could go back to back on winning recognition at a global brand, we want to hear what he has to say, right?
It's amazing. I love the Adobe team. I'm really excited.
All right. Well, Brian, are you on?
Yep, I'm on, and I came on and I realized I'm following Beck Holland, and that is a tough act to follow, I'll tell you.
Well,
I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
I wasn't nervous before, and then I pop up and Beck's on. I'm like, all right, well.
Well, Brian, I'm going to read, I know you, but I'm going to read your bio because I love this bio, okay? Brian Hanks is currently a strategic accounts director at Adobe, working with some of Adobe's largest global accounts across the KPG, auto, and retail industries. Prior to this role, he held positions throughout the Adobe Sales Academy, including inbound SDR, outbound SDR, enterprise ISR. Throughout his time at the Sales Academy, he was won many accolades, including 2018 Rookie of the Year, 2019 Global, see, I've always thought that was North America. Now I'm going to brag even more. Global BDR of the Year. And 2020 ISR Grit Award winner. He was also the fastest to ever move into the enterprise account director role, promoting from university hire in under 2.5 years, and still maintains a perfect record of never missing a quarterly annual quota. Brian is a graduate of the sales program at the University of Texas at Dallas and is a frequent speaker on topics like modern day digital prospecting, the blurred lines of top closers and BDRs, and building a promotion path through your personal brand. Brian is also an award-winning person here at UTD, and we're just so thrilled to give him the opportunity to come back and teach us. So with that, Brian, I'll turn it to you.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Dover. And to Beck's point, if you guys ever have any problems falling asleep, I'm happy to send you my bio and we can just read through that again. But without further ado, I will, let's see here. I will share my screen and dive into this. All right. Can you guys see okay? Thumbs up, maybe? Yes. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and kick us off. So first of all, thanks everybody for joining today. I know how challenging it is to be on some of these conferences whenever we have our meetings and the number of emails that are coming in. It's a lot easier to stay attentive on these types of sessions whenever we're actually here in person, but I appreciate everybody joining today. We're going to cover a number of different topics. Some of these things are very much near and dear to my heart. This is one of, I'd say probably the most fun I've had at Adobe is of course, the closing role I'm in today, but going back and trying to help out new hires and people along the way with some of the things that I've learned, some of the things that I've done well, but most importantly, some of the things that I failed at along the way, and just doing whatever we can to help progress some of the new hires. So the goal today is, again, I don't study this stuff 100% of my time. I'm just somebody who has like kind of lived in this in the past few years, been in the role of an outbound sales rep. So if you take anything away from this, the goal is just to take away a couple tips and tricks that I learned along the way. Hopefully there's at least one thing in there that you can share back to the team later this week to help you, whether it be research, whether it be outreach, whatever it may be. So we'll cover some macro trends in the industry, what I'm referring to as a personalization balance act, which is a real thing. We'll cover the research side of it and then the outreach side, and we'll leave some time for some questions, hopefully. So Dr. Dove already covered the bio, so I won't bore you any further with it, but I will just add UTD Sales Program alumni. I won't say when I graduated, I won't date myself, but held a lot of different roles inside of Adobe. The one I'll be focusing on most today is the time whenever I was in inside sales. So I'll be dusting off the old BDR hat and touching on that today, but mostly going to be about some of these prospecting best practices. So in my opinion, looking at some of the different macro trends that we're seeing across the prospecting world, first things first is there are more SDRs and BDRs than there ever has been. I think organizations now, and more so every single year, are seeing how valuable this position is. Knocking on doors, getting these meetings set up that weren't previously set up is proving so dang valuable. And just a quick look on LinkedIn, you'll see there's, I think, like what, 3.5 million SDRs on LinkedIn, 4.5 million BDRs. It's a crazy, crazy number. And the ideal prospect or the ideal person that you're trying to reach out to, the C-suites, that's not necessarily growing at the same rate. So you're just getting this large number of SDRs, but not the same number of, I guess, buyers. On the flip side of this, or I guess as we continue, there's also more automation than ever, right? As a BDR, I could go onto LinkedIn and within maybe 5 clicks, I can go on LinkedIn, pull a list of contacts, add them into my outreach sequence, and all of a sudden I have 1,000 emails going out the door. If I can do that and I had access to outreach, I mean, geez, so can all these other 4.8 million BDRs, right? I mean, these companies are growing at phenomenal rates, as they should. It's a killer product, whatever these sales engagement platforms are. And just a quick stat to prove that kind of point, Outreach now has 3,300 customers with over 66,000 reps on their product. And that's just for Outreach. There's the other ones as well. So it's just growing, and it's becoming easier and easier for these SDRs to just kind of almost in some regard, just spray and pray or automation, whatever it may be. So that coupled with, of course, COVID didn't help, right? The amount of emails that a person is getting nowadays, of course, we have the external ones I just talked about, but previously in an office, you could just walk down the hallway and talk to your colleagues, get something done. Now it's all being done via email. So when somebody was, or Slack or whatever it may be, right? So when somebody was getting maybe 50 emails a day before, now we're in upwards of 100 or something along those lines, right? So it's just becoming so challenging. And what we're seeing is what I'm referring to as kind of prospect fatigue. They're getting so many emails. All of the emails from SDRs are saying that they are the best product in the universe. They have all kinds of things in there talking about, they're number one, here's the ROI, all those types of things. And what ends up happening is these prospects just see it as noise and they just ignore everything, whether it be phone calls, whether it be emails, whether it be LinkedIn. It just becomes tiring, and they ignore a lot. So how do we cut through the noise, right? I think the immediate thought is, oh, well, you have to personalize. All right. Well, in practicality, it's a little bit easier said than done, which enters this kind of balancing act that SDRs have today. On one hand, we have to make sure our management is happy with all of our activities, our number of dials, emails, messages, whatever it may be. Then on the other hand, we also have to personalize because we know that that's what cuts through the noise. And to that same point, it's a necessity for both. On one hand, we have to touch all of our accounts. That's a fact. Like no stone should go unturned in this role. But it takes a little bit more time to personalize. So how do we do this, right? How do we have high activity, but also personalize? I think that's something that is a challenge, but we can start to piecemeal this thing and get a little bit better at it. If we look at it in a couple different ways. So I look at it as personalization at scale or practical personalization, which I think kind of falls into 3 different buckets. You have your research. You should be able to understand which are the accounts that are the ones that need to be personalized to. So I have a number of slides on the research piece of this, but you should be looking at things like 10Ks, annual reports. Do they have your ICP at that company? Past ops in your CRM, employee count and growth and AE prioritization, right? Then you should take all of your research. And then in step 2, you should segment your accounts. So you have your A accounts, your B accounts, and your C accounts. As far as and by the way, your account segmentation is a little bit different of a BDR versus an AE. A BDR is compensated and looked at based off of opportunities mostly or meeting sets. So I look at that a little bit differently if I'm a BDR than if I'm an AE. As a BDR, you should take into account what your AE is segmenting, but you should also be looking at it from your own set of eyes. And then finally, you should personalize and automate. So when I look at that, I go, okay, once I've segmented my accounts, my A's, B's, and C's, I should be highly personalizing to my A accounts and my top B accounts. My C accounts, on the other hand, I should be creating what I'm referring to as an MVP or a minimum viable personalization sequence, something that I'm okay to put my name on. It's not going to be your traditional sales sequence where it gets deleted, but it's not also going to be as highly prioritized. So something that is, I'm okay putting my name and my company's name on it. And that's the sequence that goes out to my B's and C's. So again, I'm sufficing on the activity. I have the sequence that's going out to these people, but I'm also highly personalizing to my A's and B's. So how do we highly personalize? I think that there's two different buckets that this goes into. It's number one, it's the actual account intel. And then number two, it's the outreach piece of it. So we'll dive into the account intel first. And this is where I'm going to get very much into the tactical and into the weeds here. Because I think that account intel is essentially half the battle. Knowledge is power in a lot of ways. Knowledge gives you confidence when you're talking to people. Knowledge gives you confidence to cold call. I'm much more happy and confident to call in on a CEO if I know their business model. I know the challenges that they're facing, but you don't get there without doing account intel. So these are all the ways that I consider my research when I'm doing my account intel. There's a lot here. So maybe screenshot, maybe I'll send the slides afterwards, but the variety of different ways I look at it is number one, CRM. You can go back in your past ops, you look at your notes, look at your contacts, understand what their business objectives were a year ago, what has changed, what hasn't. Let's look at 10Ks, annual reports, and earnings calls. Look for in there, you're calling out your strategic initiatives, what areas or what business units are growing at the fastest rates. I always just kind of filter through all the 10Ks by just hitting Command F and then just searching for relevant words. For me, it's like marketing or digital transformation. So I'd search for those things and there's usually a paragraph on it. I do these fun things where it's called ecosystem learning, listening parties, where the whole team comes on and we're listening to these earnings calls. So we're all leveraging it, whether it be specialists, solutions consultants, customer success managers. We should all be thinking about these things. I also take it one step further. I am absolutely crazy for doing this, but I invest very fractional shares in my companies if they're publicly traded, because I want to be financially incentivized to know everything that's going on there. LinkedIn Sales Navigator, I will have very specific slides on those coming up, so I'm going to skip that one. YouTube, I use this to search my prospect's name. What are they talking about? On what speeches have they done? What conference have they spoken at? What can we leverage as part of our outreach? I have an example later on where this guy was at a conference. He was talking about his entire slide deck was all about baseball, getting from first base, second base, third base, and then I personalized my outreach based off of baseball. Careers page, I think that is a hidden gem that nobody really touches as far as their prospecting. So I'll dive into that. Google, literally just search your prospect's name on Google, looking for articles, blogs, podcasts, just something that we can leverage for personalization. Venture capital, if you're in the SMB space, you have a lot of these companies that are in high growth. If a company comes in or venture capital comes in and is offering dollars, what other companies are in that VC's portfolio? Are they using your products? Can you leverage that VC to get in with your prospect? Board of directors, can you match your executives to one of the executives that's on your company, right? Are they sitting on the same board of directors somewhere else? Let's see if we can get ourselves a warm introduction that way. Instagram, Twitter, what publicly information do they share about themselves? So if they, again, we have to be professional and those types of things, but if it's out there and they leverage it, like, let's use it. I use that to build rapport, email openers. It becomes more fun that way. And then lastly, become a customer. I always like to go through the experience myself, just to understand their business model, understand how they generate revenue. I personally am in the space of optimizing that experience, so that helps me generate some low-hanging fruit. But if you're in a different space, just become an expert on their model. Know what drives revenue. And lastly, of course, there's more, right? These are just the ones that I've called out here. So next slides, these are going to be just some tactical tips, hopefully that you can take away and work for you. So we'll dive into hidden advocates, hidden promoters, and the careers page. All right, hidden advocates. So what I like to do is I like to search for people who have had past experience with my products and liked it enough, did enough with it where they're going to call it out on their LinkedIn. So I'll go to LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I will pop in all the companies that I work with. So my account list, essentially. If you don't have an account list and you work at Geo, just pop in like the state of Florida, whatever it is. And then I put in the keywords, I put in my products. So for me, it's like a list of like 30 different products and I Boolean search for it. So for me, it's AEM or Marketo or Adobe Analytics. And what I'm searching for is people who in their past experience will say things like, implemented AEM and saw 20% increase, whatever it may be. So now I have these hidden advocates that liked my product enough and put it on their LinkedIn. And they might be a practitioner. They might be somebody who's now moved into management because they used my products to, do well enough at their job and then, get themselves a promotion. Doesn't really matter to me. I'm looking for somebody who is at least a familiar face, somebody who can be receptive to my outreach, somebody who can introduce me to somewhere else. And if they have that past product experience, they're receptive to my brand, they're receptive to my products. All right, the next one is previous employer, top company. Again, so this one's not going to be as fruitful in a lot of ways as the past product experience, but I like to use this one to open up doors of familiarity. So same thing as before, pop in your account list into the current company section, or if you have geo, pop in your geo. And then I worked with my sales ops folks and I asked for a list of the top 25 customers that we have. So who is investing the most in my solutions, which companies are, and then can I track it back to where I have people who are at my current prospect list that previously came from a company that was a top 25 customer of mine, meaning they have in some form or fashion, that company operated on my products. For me, maybe it was their website. For other people, maybe if it's Workday, it's their ERP system. If it's, SAP, whatever it may be. I want somebody who had worked at a company that was familiar with it. Familiar enough to where I can leverage that in my outreach. They knew it because they leveraged it in some way, or the company operated on it. Again, I'm looking to make this, instead of such a cold outreach, leverage something. So again, pulling in the top 25 customers, put it in the past company, and see who came from that company. All right, last one on the outreach piece. Careers page. This is one that I find is just a complete hidden gem that not a lot of people, at least that I'm aware of, are using this. So what I like to do is I'll go onto my prospective company page and I'll hit the careers page. And the first thing I'm looking for is, where's the company investing the most money in? Where is it that they're seeing as their resource allocation should go to? So here's an example. So here's all the different job categories, right? Okay, so this company, retail, that won't matter because this is a retail brand. This is going to be for the actual employers. Okay, it looks like they're investing pretty heavily in data analytics and strategy. They're investing in distribution, sales account management. Great. Okay, this is kind of in line with what I'm looking for. This is where both the headcount is going to, and likely some other investments are going to, because those are the departments that are getting the funding. That's the first thing I look at. The second thing is I'll start clicking in on some of these roles that fit my prospects. So if I'm looking for, like, I don't know, they're hiring for like director of marketing, for an example, I'll click in on that one and I'll look at two different sections. I look at about the role, and then I look at your experience. So about the role, that tells me a lot of information. That tells me what strategic initiatives the company is looking at. That tells me what they're looking to accomplish once they get into this role. That tells me what they want this contact to be really excited about. So I use this for a couple of different ways. One, I know the strategic initiatives that the company is working on. I'll leverage that as part of my outreach to current employees. And then two, I'll screenshot this. This is incredibly useful information on your discovery calls, right? I mean, you can look at this, like I'll look at this one for an example: oversees launch and scale of omni-channel programs, including CRM, loyalty programs, et cetera, et cetera. So that'll be one of the questions I ask them. Hey, my understanding is you coming into this role, you were supposed to launch and scale an omni-channel program that includes CRM and loyalty programs. How is that going for you? And then dive into it that way, so we can understand more about what they've done, and it prompts the discovery calls. And then the last one I use, so the about you, they're calling out things like must have experience with, and then it'll leverage other technologies. So for me, I go, oh, okay, so if you must have experience with product A, that's likely what's going to be the install. So I now know what my competitive landscape is, because it'll say must have experience with this product. And then I'll just go back onto LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I'll search that as a keyword and just make sure that the current employees have that called out somewhere on there, like leverage product A to launch whatever, just to make sure that it's correct. But I'll use that to understand my competitive landscape. All right. Okay. So step 2, outreach. So you've done all your research, you've done all of your planning, you know a lot about these accounts, you've done all of your account intel. So now step 2 is, how do I actually like put this into words, whether that be words over the phone, words over email, whatever it is that you're using as your channels for prospecting. Now's the time to do so. So I created this kind of, I don't know, rules of engagement, if you will, things to always be keeping in mind as you are handling your outreach. Number 1 is, please use their language, not yours. Sales emails, in my mind, are just the most easiest things to sniff out and just like the fastest things to delete. Everybody on this phone call has received sales emails, whether it be in your email, whether it be in LinkedIn, and you know it like right off the bat, because it'll say something like, I'm your sales development representative, or I'm your account executive. Those are our words, guys. It's not their words. They don't really care about an AE. Next thing is, keep it short, sweet, and immediately relevant. People don't want 5 paragraphs worth of text. They're going to delete it most likely if it's long paragraphs, and it needs to be personalized immediately. And then last thing, just be authentic, be human. Like, don't have these like messagings that makes you come off like a robot. Just have fun with it, right? You have to be you have to be professional, of course, but just be authentic, be a human, and have some fun, right? You're gonna get some rejections along the way. Accept them, A/B test, try something out. If it doesn't work, move on. You have to be flexible and pivot in this role. You just have to. All right. So let's dive into a quick tip. One of the ones that I like to dive into. So their language, not yours. Again, they don't care that you're their SDR. They don't care that you're their AE or whatever other sales acronym. They also, by the way, don't care about the ROI report. So claiming in your first outreach, oh, we have 500% ROI, or even if you say 20% ROI, no matter what the number is, they're not going to believe you, and they're going to sniff it out. Sales team will remove it. Same with the quadrants and the waves, those types of things. I haven't seen any success with sharing those with these customers, because again, they just don't care right now. I think those things are great whenever you get into the business case down in the sales cycle, but not in the immediate outreach. What they do care about, though, is they care that you know their role. They care that you know their industry and their challenges, because it's all going to be unique to their role, again, and to their company. So how do we do this? There's a number of different ways, but the tip that I wanted to share with you guys that I did when I was in this role was, I took as many call recordings as I possibly could, and then all the discovery ones, just the discovery calls, and then I put them through a transcription service. So maybe it was already transcribed because you're using Gong or Chorus, whatever it may be. Maybe it's already transcribed. And then what I'm looking for is the most frequently used words from the prospect, not the salesperson. The prospect is telling me all these frequently used words, frequently used challenges, anything that is consistently bubbled up. And then I'll slice it into, okay, in the retail industry, these are their common challenges. In the travel and hospitality industry, these are their common challenges spoken by the prospect. And then I'll leverage that as part of my wording in my outreach, because I know these are their words. This is coming from this industry, not me. I'm not the one saying it. This isn't something I heard in a sales training. This isn't a sequence that got passed on to me by another BDR. These are their words. So I'll use that in my outreach. So the next one, I just kind of threw together like a very simple email template this morning, just to like kind of call out how this can be kind of done in practicality. And some like kind of words to live by. I think that subject lines need to be less than 3 words. You really should have no more than 100 words total in your email. And I think that personalization should happen in the very first sentence. And then don't ask for a meeting on your first one. Those are kind of your like table stakes for outreach. I don't like the apologizing on the outreach. Sorry for bogging down your, whatever it may be. So those are kind of like the tips and tricks on this one. This isn't like the world's best email by any means, but what we're trying to call out here is, okay, simple subject line. It's relevant immediately. So as a fellow baseball fan, and I linked in here a YouTube presentation where this guy was talking about how much he likes baseball, and it was part of his presentation that he was doing at some big conference. So he knows that I called that out, right? He knows that I watched that presentation. Call me crazy. Okay, these are, again, human words, not something you'll put in a robotic sentence. And then these types of words, cost center versus revenue, flow transfers of leads from marketing to sales, data security to marketing. These are all things, again, I'm hoping to have pulled away from this bubble, like the most common word bubble that I talked about on the last slide. And then the last piece is, would you be interested in me sending this over? So we're looking for interest. We're not looking for meetings. Okay, so now we're on our last slide. If there's anything that you guys take away from this, I wanted to share that prospect fatigue is real. It is a real thing that companies and these C-suites and VPs are faced with right now. They are just not responding to sales folks because of this. It's just so many emails, so obvious that it's sales, etc. I think that you should personalize and automate. I think that these tools that we have available to us to automate is phenomenal, and we should use it and we should lean in, but we should also be smart about it. So let's segment out our accounts and do it the right way. I truly believe knowledge is power. I have called on accounts and got into a VP level and I didn't do my research, and my call completely falls flat. If I don't know their business model, I don't know their challenges, I will fall flat 100 out of 100 times. I can try and wing it, but they'll sniff it out. Know your customer, know their industry, be able to come in with confidence, because that'll go so much further. And lastly, just keep it short, keep it sweet, and be human. This is one of those roles where it's a grind. It's tough. It is. But you have to lean in and have some fun with it. Always A/B test, try new things. Don't be afraid to fail. We've all failed. We all have those things where you get this incredible rejection and it's like the most embarrassing thing in the entire world and you just want to bury your head in the sand. But it happens to every single person. It does. So understand that that's part of the role and just have fun with it, because that's the best way you're going to get through this. So, all right, that's it.